Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends, and welcome to part 3 of Meghan in Vogue. Today, we're analyzing Edward's editor's letter. Chapter 6, A Message from Vogue House. Editor's letter. It all began with an email received in the chilly depths of January. I was spending a few days in the Austrian mountains when a message arrived in my inbox out of the blue. Okay, let's pause there and remind ourselves of the timeline. December 18 is when Vanessa Grigoriadis's Vanity Fair article titled Inside the Markle Family Breakdown came out. It was the first article that explored the Markle family estrangement in a manner equally critical of Meghan as it was of her father, and considered a serious blow to her image. The first week of January 2019, the Daily Mail published a heavily redacted version of Meghan's Dear Daddy letter. January 16th was the day Meghan threatened suicide before the Cirque du Soleil show at Royal Albert Hall. So I'm unclear on what the depths of January are, but I think it's fair to say it takes more than 10 days, 2 weeks to go from suicidal to cold calling, or in this case, email blasting fashion editors about getting a cover profile, especially without the prior knowledge or approval of the royal family. Meghan was so beaten down and frightened of the royals, she couldn't seek out a psychiatrist, but at the same time, wholly capable of and unfazed by personally soliciting one of the most eminent editors-in-chief in the United Kingdom. She was so weak, yet so selfless and not wanting to make the family look bad, and Harry was so ashamed of her, especially after being rejected by the people he believed would help him, that they decided to keep their awful secret, even from mental health professionals. Yet they were going to splash Meghan out in word and image in the fashion Bible of the UK, surrounding her with journalists and photographers on a monthly, if not weekly basis in the process. The sender went by the simplest of monikers, M, and for a second I was confused, wondering who this mysterious, one-lettered correspondent could possibly be. It is so extremely beyond egotistical that Meghan signs cold emails M, as if Madonna, Mariah, Meryl don't exist in this world, not to mention the hundreds of actresses, models, fashion people with M names, all more suitable for British Vogue than Meghan Markle. Margot Robbie, Marion Cotillard, Monica Bellucci, Miuccia Prada, Marc Jacobs, Margarita Missoni. My personal theory on this is that narcissistic Meghan imagines herself to be an omnipotent, unseen puppet master like M in James Bond. I couldn't have known then how the answer to this question would come to define an extraordinary few months in the life of this magazine, or that it would lead to Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex becoming the first person ever to guest edit a September issue of British Vogue. Obviously, September is the biggest advertiser month of the year. I wonder if Edward totally underestimated Meghan, thinking he could control her, or if he sized her up and expected this and didn't care because his numbers had started to drop. Anyone who knows me or has read this title since I became its editor 2 years ago will already appreciate that the Duchess is a woman for whom I have a deep and profound respect. Since she first began to navigate the waters of the British establishment, I, like so many in this country, have found her to be an inspirational woman of action. How so? She's hardly the first D-list actress you've met, I'm sure. Very likely not the first to marry way up either. They're equally women of action. Do they merit and receive your deep and profound respect? Were you inspired by them? I think you should cultivate a deeper respect for your reader. We buy Vogue for fashion, not for pages upon pages of back-scratching bullshit. From her hands-on approach to transforming women's lives at SmartWorks, to the variety of her broader charity commitments, she bears all the hallmarks of a true activist. No, she does not. An activist can come from any walk of life except royalty. Activists actively campaign to bring about political and/or social change. That's the definition. She was a working royal. That was her job. Her extremely cushy, totally secure, 100% flexible, let's face it, not that hard job. And despite being entry level and working just 36 days a year, she enjoyed all the perks any granddaughter of a grand chaebol would expect. In addition to her husband's £3 million allowance, her lifestyle was completely financed by her father-in-law. She lived in a palace with a $1 million wardrobe, personal chefs, dressers, assistants, secretaries, trainers, drivers, doctors, gardeners, maids, round-the-clock security, and experts who guided her in communicating with the proper charities to work towards becoming their royal patron. If she wanted to research a cause or a charity, somebody did it for her. If she wanted to write them a letter or give a speech, somebody wrote it for her. When she was required to visit a charity, the focus wasn't on telling her how to behave, it was on telling them how to behave. Don't stare, don't question her, don't correct her. Don't talk to her unless she talks to you. Don't make her feel awkward. Curtsy and bow. Please and thank you, ma'am. She was never driven to the front lines of one specific cause due to an experience so life-changing, it inspired her to devote every waking moment and a good chunk of her personal resources to it. Activism implies a fight, a war of words, a war of wits, doing everything you can to change an unacceptable status quo. In 2017, Meghan was in the Royal Ribbon Cutting 101 work study program. And then there is the gently modernizing manner in which she has approached her new role at the center of Britain's public life. From negotiating first-time motherhood within an ancient institution, to changing how we frame the conversation around women who face rabid media interest, her positive influence is everywhere. No, it's not. Meghan did absolutely nothing to change what giving birth as a royal is like because nothing was wrong with it before. They have the best doctors and nutritionists in the world throughout their pregnancy. They give birth in the most luxurious hospital suites in the United Kingdom, surrounded by loved ones. Unlike most women, they can afford to stay in the hospital as long as they please and leave when they're good and ready after they've benefited from the services of a professional dresser, hairdresser, and makeup artist. All they are asked for in exchange for their child being in the line of succession is 2 minutes, maybe, of posing outside the hospital, holding their baby, again, surrounded by family, friends, and the best security money can buy. There is literally nothing about the process that need be or even could be modernized. How did she make it more modern? Likewise, with Meghan making improvements in women hounded by media scrutiny. She has not. She's changed nothing whatsoever. Her husband's many lawsuits have changed nothing whatsoever. He's not even suing the media for anything that happened after 2011. Because nothing has. And we may find, as his cases wrap up, that none of the things he accuses the media of happened for a good deal of time before that either. In addition to the punitive laws against media intrusion passed after Princess Diana's death, Meghan has always had the best security detail money can buy anywhere in the world. Of the approximately 223,000 charities registered in England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, 0 are devoted to pregnant royals or famous women, occasionally photographed by paparazzi, because they are not victims. They can more than afford to help themselves, and they do. Is this Enninful's passive-aggressive way of letting us know this woman does nothing but complain? On a personal note, I can't overstate how much it meant to me to see His Royal Highness, the Duke of Sussex, marry this brilliant biracial American powerhouse. I simply never imagined that in my lifetime, someone of my color would or could enter the highest echelons of our royal family. She is not your color, is she? Sorry to be crude, but if they had a contest for the horsiest looking black woman in the universe, I think Meghan would win. She's just his usual type with a sepia Instagram filter. Sorry, but there is a difference between a senior royal marrying a black person and a senior royal marrying a white passing person. To those people who perceive one dumb rich guy's choice of wife as historic, momentous, and symbolic, I certainly don't. Colorism has consequences for everyday people. On her wedding day, as she rode to St. George's Chapel at Windsor, with her mother, Doria, by her side, to marry the man of her dreams, it was clear that the world was witnessing something incredibly powerful. It went beyond diversity, beyond inclusivity, into humanity. It was pure love. That's not what I saw. I saw the typical turnout of royal fans and media. Did more American expats and/or people of color turn up? Maybe, but it was hardly a transcendent experience. It sounds like Meghan is writing this. Did Meghan tell him what to write? Did he agree to it? Or did Edward spin this tale and Meghan's the one who's been plagiarizing him all these years? What is going on? Yet all of these thoughts were ones I'd had from afar. We'd never actually met. Then, on that fateful day in January, the M email pinged into my life. In a tone that I would come to recognize as her calling card, the message was warm, purposeful, and to the point. She believed we would have lots in common, and would I like to meet up? Of course, I was more than a little nervous when, a week later, I headed to meet the Duchess for tea in central London. She was entering the final months of her pregnancy and was utterly radiant in a navy-tailored coat. She was also full of ideas. What struck me most was her remarkable immediacy. You have all these preconceptions about what a duchess will be like, but Her Royal Highness simply gave me a hug and said, "I'm Meghan." LOL. The editor-in-chief of British Vogue acting starstruck by an American duchess. Eddie had an OBE before he met Meghan, and he's besties with the Marchioness of Bath. And huggers. I just don't understand. This is so out of culture for me. I don't want to hug or be hugged by anybody who isn't an immediate family member, a dear friend, a lover. I can forgive a child for it. Once, out of sheer relief and thankfulness, I hugged a doctor who performed surgery on me, and he accepted my hug, but we both felt awkward within moments. I genuinely don't understand people like Meghan. If you're a hugger, please explain to me why in the comments below. We made an instant connection. Straight away, our perspectives on work made us feel so naturally synced, and we started discussing her projects with Smartwork and how the magazine might be able to support them. I left feeling inspired and ready to help in any way that I could. Then I got a text message. Would I, the Duchess asked ever so politely, consider co-editing a special issue of Vogue with her to highlight all the brilliant female changemakers who have made a laudable impact in recent times and who are set to reshape society in radical and positive ways in the future? You know who else does that? Derek Blasberg. He meets you at a party, texts you for lunch, texts you to see a movie, wants you to invite him to a party he's not invited to. But whenever he makes a big ask, it's not in person, it's always text. He authored one of those dumb books about class versus trash, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. I'm sure Meghan read it, since that's a topic that consumes her. I just Googled him to see what he's up to. As of 2018, he's the head of fashion and beauty partnerships at YouTube. Who knew? That's funny. Derek, please don't annihilate my RPM for this. Oh my god, I just checked. He has a YouTube channel. I'm dying. I'll link to one of his videos below. New York and London and high society is full of cold, snarky super bitches like myself and squishy, non-threatening fashion gays like Derek and Edward build huge careers on reassuring each individual specimen of this type of woman that she's the top to top. I think a big part of Meghan's successful social climb is owed to the fact that she took on that persona. The sweet, good, kind lover of simple things who's always reaching out and checking up and connecting and doing that horrible fake forced laugh to everything people say. I wonder if there was any spark of recognition when Megsy met Eddie.
In January, I got this text on my phone.
I wanted to see if you would help me with SmartWorks.
SmartWorks, yeah.
Right? And so there we were, having tea.
I remember walking into Kensington Palace and I was so excited.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh, lovely to meet you, Duchess. And you're like, call me Meghan.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a mutually agreed upon cover story they didn't bother to rehearse once at all.
Oh, yeah.
From activists to artists, prime ministers to climate change campaigners, we would gather faces from the front lines of fashion, film, technology, wellness, and beyond to celebrate a special moment in time and to ask the question, what's next? This special moment being what? A D-list actress who married up gracing your pages? I didn't have to think. I knew the answer was yes. We could call it forces for change, I said. Did you though? Clearly the cover was plagiarized. The question is, who done it, Eddie or Megzy? Was it hubris, laziness, eagerness to mock Alexandra? Do you think Edward got anything in exchange for gifting Meghan plausible deniability? And the adventure began. Boy, was it an adventure. From the outset, I discovered someone with a real editor's mind who knew how to align what she wanted to say with everything we stand for here at British Vogue. Ha, that's definitely code for she's a control freak who wrote everything she could herself and edited everything she couldn't write into oblivion, all the while selling them the benefits of going along with her plan. When I first showed her layouts of how some early features might look, well, she just got it. From ideas on the flat plan to selecting and commissioning writers and photographers, it was a process she instantly understood. Well, the process of putting a magazine together isn't hard to understand. It's the execution that can get sticky, obviously. The Duchess introduces her extraordinary work in her own words in her guest editor's letter on the following pages, but you will find evidence of her influence everywhere. Oh, Eddie, we know, we know. From interviewing Michelle Obama to spotlighting her charity SmartWorks. That's sort of rude. It's not her charity. She didn't come up with the idea. She didn't found it. She didn't fund it. And she doesn't run it. And penning an introduction to a favorite poem, Matt Haig's A Note from the Beach. She also happens to have commissioned her husband, Prince Harry, to interview the indomitable Jane Goodall in a fascinating piece that shows how we can all look after our world better. Throughout all this, I have been struck by the Duchess's sincerity and her daring. Like all working members of the royal family, she proves her mettle as a philanthropist on a daily basis and regularly turns her attention to those less fortunate. But as you'll see from her selections throughout this magazine, she is also willing to wade into more complex and nuanced areas, whether they concern female empowerment, mental health, race, or privilege. That's rather rude. Other working royals certainly handle complexity and nuance. Catherine has devoted years to learning a lot about early childhood development, for example. From the very beginning, we talked about the cover, whether she would be on it or not. In the end, she felt that it would be in some ways a boastful thing to do for this particular project. She wanted instead to focus on women she admires. I love, love, love that Eddie was dead set on getting his revenge on Alexandra at Meghan's expense, but I'm torn on whether or not he did the right thing by Catherine. On one hand, not letting the new Duchess in town compete with her 100-year anniversary cover was smart. On the other, implying that Catherine was boastful for agreeing to be on the cover is not cute. The fact that he put down in his letter that that's how Meghan felt is unacceptable. You can let Meghan undermine her sister-in-law all by herself. If I were Catherine, I'd keep him at arm's length moving forward. There have been so many special moments in the process. I will never forget visits to Kensington Palace with my team from Vogue in the last cold days of winter, or our emoji-filled text conversations as spring arrived bringing new life. In this case, quite literally, as the Duchess gave birth to her son Archie, and refocusing all of our minds on the important job at hand. 2019 marks a fundamental moment of societal change, a tipping point that I believe we will re-examine in years to come. Do you think Edward knew about or guessed at the exit strategy? H&M left the royal family just 3 months later. To have the country's most influential beacon of change guest edit Vogue at this time has been an honor, a pleasure, and a wonderful surprise. The country's most influential beacon of change? This is just too much now. Carol Cadwallader is not guest editing Vogue. When you only know someone by their public persona, All too often, you find yourself disappointed by the reality, but once in a while, someone comes along who exceeds all of your expectations. What was Meghan's public persona? Diana cosplayer? Hat hater? Buzzword butcher? Soho house furniture? Shoe thief? I wonder if Edward made sure there were people there to watch her so she didn't get up to any of her old tricks in the fashion cupboard. Let me say this for the Duchess of Sussex. She's the real deal and an ultimate force for change. Enninful. That's honestly embarrassing because Meghan has proven herself to be such a liar, such a manipulator. She's fake through and through, inside and out. Her friendship is as fake as her teeth, and she's changed absolutely nothing except the number in her bank account. Meghan and Harry give literally less than 1% of their income to charity. The only hearts and minds she's changed since September 2019 are those of a lot of us who were initially rooting for her and couldn't think less of her now. Let me know in the comments below, do you think Meghan wrote this editor's letter and demanded Edward print it? And I hope you join me tomorrow for part 4. Toodles! Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.